people kept breaking into her home.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? Because that was way afterward. I mean, Barney had passed already.
Yes, a little bit of this started when Barney was alive. At least there were a couple of bizarre incidents that happened, and you can read about that in Captured. But after Barney's death, the harassment seemed to step up. And actually, I was a college student at the time, and I moved from my dormitory to Betty's house, to an apartment in her house, to be with her, to give her some support through this and to watch her house. One day, I was in the basement. I had a basement apartment. I was down there studying, and I heard what I thought was Betty coming home for lunch. And so I went up the stairs, and there was no one there. I looked around, called for her, no Betty. So I went back downstairs, and all of a sudden, I heard a crash, and I went running up the stairs to see what that was. The closet door was open. The front door to her apartment was open, and the front door to her apartment building was open, and there was a man dressed in a brown suit, sort of a tannish brown suit, running away from Betty's house. So I actually caught whoever that was, and I'm glad I didn't open the closet door because I think he was holding that baseball bat. That was what I heard fall. There were other cases where Betty's house was entered. She had done her taxes. She had all of her tax information in a big brown paper bag, all ready to take to her accountant, when it suddenly disappeared from her house. It appeared at a later date, I think it was a couple of months later, and the bag had been emptied out, scattering papers all through her apartment. At another time, her dining room chairs were taken into her living room and just arranged in a circle. Another time, her clothing, her coats were taken out of her closet, and they were lying in a heap on her living room floor, and one of Barney's scarves was laying over the top of the heap. So these were all things that happened that were very distressing, that Betty couldn't stop. And the only way that she stopped them was to have the security system put into her house, and it was wired into the police department. Her house was broken into one time after that. The alarm went off. The police came. They didn't catch the person, but that seems to have ended the breaking and entering into her home.
What do you think that was? It was obviously human harassment.
Oh, I think it was an intelligence agency. That's my impression. Her phone was tapped as well. And I've read this in her records, and I've read statements by other individuals. She had the tap taken off at one time.
At the end of her life, was she happy? Was there a sense of great loss? Was there a sense of having not lived the life she wanted to live? Do you remember?
Oh, yes. I am the trustee of her estate, and I actually took physical care of Betty when she was in hospice care in her home. At the end of her life. She was dying from lung cancer. And Betty was a very optimistic person at the end of her life. She stated that she thought she had lived a wonderful life. And when asked if she would have preferred not to have had this abduction experience, she said that the abduction experience opened up new avenues to her. She met people that she never would have met before. And she really, really enjoyed meeting all of these different scientists and all of the individuals she met. She had a gregarious personality. She loved people. She had a great sense of humor, kind of a wry sense of humor, and had a constant flow of visitors through her house. And So she was very, very happy and felt gratified at the end of her life. She felt she had lived a wonderful life.
I'm glad to hear that. What about Barney? What's your take on the end of his life and where he was left in his psyche with all this?
Barney's life ended in 1969. The Interrupted Journey was published in the fall of 1966. So he really didn't have a great deal of time to enjoy life after the UFO experience, the hypnosis, and he was actually still actively promoting the book. He was actively working on the civil rights movement. He had been appointed by the governor of New Hampshire to serve on the State Advisory Commission for the U.S. Civil Rights Commission. So, he was a driven man. He was very active in all of these different things, and his life was suddenly snuffed out due to a cerebral hemorrhage during a blizzard in February of 1969. He was 46 years old, and the sense I got from him was that there hadn't been closure at that time the way there was with Betty. There were still so many questions, and there was still so much to do that he didn't have the opportunity to accomplish.
He passed very young.
Yes, he did.
And how was Betty after her husband had passed so young like that?
It was very, very difficult for Betty to go through this. I actually have included a letter that she wrote about this in the book Captured, where she's introspective and talking about Barney's loss and how they had simply been down enjoying a game of pool in their basement. There was so much snow that they both had the day off from work. Even the U.S. Post Office had to close, and how he felt that he was experiencing the sensation of having a bee sting in his head. And this occurred, and all of a sudden he said he didn't feel well. And he tried to make his way up the stairs and collapsed on the stairs and sort of dragged himself toward the couch, and Betty found him there. And just the entire experience of not anticipating that this would happen, and that he was in a deep coma that he wouldn't come out of, and the worry she experienced. And then life suddenly without her spouse at such a young age. But she was a very strong person, and she also had a lot of support. And she went on through all of this.
What a survivor and a compelling being to have, once this whole series of abductions became public, to have just embraced it and stepped out and helped educate the public about it.
Yeah, she was fearless.
How has your work changed? You've been in this a long time now. How has your work changed since you had access to one of the most public cases of a UFO abduction?
Well, it hasn't changed a great deal, I don't think. Except for that I am writing more and more. I'm being asked to write magazine articles. Stan and I are talking about the possibility of writing another book. So this has really become pretty much a full-time job for me. I travel and I lecture. I have a number of presentations that I give at conferences around the United States. I'm actually going to appear in England for the first time.
Fantastic. One of my favorite places.
Yeah, so it's opened up new avenues for me. And I've also become interested in other aspects of the alien abduction phenomenon. And one of those is paranormal events that seem to occur in the homes of abductees, such as light orbs that some people report pop into aliens. and poltergeist